We all experience some form of trauma, core wound. That's kind of the point of being human.
Yeah. It's a standard issue. Here,
it is
when
a
you come
standard
here,
issue.
This is going to be your deal. Yeah.
Totally, exactly. You sign up for it and you're like, all right, I'll work on this thing.
Like, I'll pick death. No, abuse. I want abuse. Yeah.
What you're essentially doing is taking what's happening inside and you're taking it out and you're looking at it. And you're saying, WTF, why? like, dude, I've been carrying you around all this time. Okay, let's have this conversation now. All right? And what you're doing is you're reframing your relationship with it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Flow Getter. Today, I have Erica with me, as always, and we're going to talk about core wounds today. We've got our topic. We're ready to go. Erica, before I get into my piles of notes on this, do you have any initial thoughts about core wounds and what that means to you?
I do, but I want to... The other day when we were talking, you had such brilliant words that I don't even want to try to... I want you to go and then...
I'm just going to jump in. Okay. Well, Audience, are you ready? Okay. So I really want to think more when we say the word core wound, what do we mean by that? And I think more than anything, it's a perception. So we're having an experience and we perceive that we have a core wound, probably because we have a, how would I say, we're stuck with something, we're having emotional pain, there's something that's recurring that feels like it's core, right? It's deep in me, which means that we've experienced it quite a bit and it feels very, very difficult to resolve, right? So we think it's core because it's like, this just isn't resolving. So I want to look at our language around that as well. But we hear it a lot in spiritual circles, and I don't think that it's maybe the most helpful way to describe what's going on. So, but it's very valid that it's perception of core wounds, because I know that I have gone through things where I'm like, this deep thing that just won't get out of me, and it's always so tough and all this stuff. And when we say the word wound, so that's sort of the core piece. And then when we say the word wound, we're thinking more about like this thing that is just not healing. It's deep. It's, painful, all this kind of stuff. So I think it's really important to kind of really unpack even the concept and the phrasing. And then we'll get into kind of what we really think is going on. I want to start off by saying that we picked this topic because, one, we've had an audience member ask us about this, and as well as because it's so prevalent in a lot of New Age spaces, our personal perspective is maybe evolved much farther away from that. But I've been there in terms of that perspective, and it's shifted, and I think it's made all the difference. So we want to share kind of why we think, we need to talk about this and shift it and not maybe use that paradigm anymore and kind of shift it to a different thing, and how you can shift out of that and heal. Before we talk about we're wounded, emotional pain, and how to reframe that, I want to talk about who we are as beings. So I'm going to start with science, which I love to start with. I want to first say that we don't have any proof that anybody knows anything on this planet. Everyone's like, it's definitely, even science and quantum physics is one of the most validated sciences because it's math, and math is, while it is flexible, is hard to argue with because planes fly. So, we like that. But if I start there going, okay, and all of us know we're made of atoms, whirring around. And when we go under those atomic things, we find that there's really nothing there. Once you the atoms are whirring around, there's really nothing there. So, or there's something there. It's called the quantum field. And ultimately, without getting too geeked out in science, ultimately the body is essentially made up of frequencies. And everyone's like, yes, but we feel really solid. Why is, of course we're here. And what I want to say is, you know, when someone pulls up next to you in a car and they sound like they've got the sound on to just a billion and it's like thumping at you and it hurts your ears. Well, it can, you know, and how the military uses sonic warfare as a warfare experience. And unfortunately, sea creatures have to deal with that. But basically, sound is very solid, actually, at a certain level of decibel and wave frequency. Do this dance. And so we feel solid, even though we aren't, because our frequencies are such that it feels very dense, but just like really big sound, it's not. So the reason I wanted to bore us all with science,
it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, the reason, and again, I'm not a scientist and I'm paraphrasing and, you know, we can all argue about it, but this is where I'm coming from, baby. So essentially what we're dealing with is like, why are we having these emotional repeats? You know, why am I the way I am? Is because we're a frequency and it's like we have a song that's dissonant with the rest of the songs going in our body, right? So if I'm all these parts of my beings, and you can break it down any way you want, but essentially, if I'm radiating the certain frequency of, let's say, a song you really like, and then a song you really don't like, you have an experience and you sort of pull that into your overall frequency, that is going to generate disharmony and feel like, and you don't know how to get rid of it, but it's in this sort of electro frequency magnetic thing that you are. And it's like, wow, how do I even deal with that? I first of all, didn't even know that's how things work, so to speak. And then how do I even deal with it? So that's sort of an out there perspective. We have some more practical advice coming up, don't worry. But I kind of wanted to just start with that, like, whoa, that's kind of a different way to look at it, right? Where I had this disharmonious frequency inside all this awesome, which is why it feels so yucky. One perspective. Erica, hit me with some perspectives.
I love that you started off with kind of this idea that we're trying to reframe it, because I think it has a very negative connotation. It also has this idea of, it's sort of like I came in with this baggage that I'm just going to have to carry with me my whole life, which I don't, I think you and I agree that that's not what we want to convey. And that's not the reason we're using the term core wounds in this is because I think a lot of people have heard that, like you said. And so, so I'm not really sure what else we want to call it at this point. I don't think we need to at this point, but
we'll invent something by the end of this podcast, probably.
Yes. Yes. So I love this idea of, okay, you said the what, and then the why. I kind of want to get to like the why. Why?
I know.
Why do we kind of come into this? Because, okay, our belief is, or at least the way that I kind of see core wounds is we come into this life with certain things that we have chosen to address and look at in this life. And not in a negative way, in a really positive, lovely way, in order to grow, evolve, change, be better, be wiser. And it's not just for us, because since we are the universe and we've already established this, it's a collective sort of healing. It's a collective growth journey. It's a collective, we're evolving collectively, and we've all kind of chosen a variety of things to look at in this life. And so when we see it that way, it's like, oh, it's sort of like you get this, I don't know, like a puzzle, and you get to solve it, and it's fun. And when you're finished, you feel so proud of yourself. So it's kind of, if you can look at it like that, then core wounds don't feel so heavy. And the other thing too is kind of identifying with it to a certain point and then de-identifying with it. And because we live in an and world, we can do both of those things simultaneously. Similar to feelings and emotions. And we have a whole podcast on feelings and emotions as a tool. And this to me is kind of similar where, okay, when we figure out what our core wounds are, because we all do have things in life that challenge us, and we all have themes in life, and it all kind of, and I'll give you an example in my life as well, just so we can kind of concretize all of this. But I do. Oh gosh. Okay, let me pause there. Do you have thoughts?
So many. I'm really glad that you, no, you can keep going. The only thing I was going to say, I was glad you asked the why, because this happens for you, and then obviously by extension for the collective. So keep going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you've run out of words, I'll jump in.
Okay, cool. Okay, awesome. Yeah. So, oh man, I wrote notes down too. Okay, hold on.
I know we've been, dear audience, thank you for bearing with us. Usually we go off the cuff, and we decided to write notes, but it's perhaps a different way of delivering the information this time.
I know. We're like,
we pre-thought about it. Weird. Yeah.
I know, which is kind of throwing me off a little. The first time I heard the term core wounds was from Matt Kahn. I was going through a breakup, and it was painful. I had a tough time. And so I kind of, I found all the resources I could find to sort of help me on my healing journey. And I came across Matt Kahn, and you actually introduced me to him. So he has this whole, like, I don't even know, books and recordings about core wounds. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. But then as I sort of continued to kind of dig into my healing journey, I realized, I guess if I wanted to call it a core wound, I realized throughout my life that I've been a lot of my relationships, there was this theme of feeling left, feeling abandoned. I guess you could use that word, feeling even like neglected in a way. Neglected might be harsh. I don't know if that, but anyway, feeling left, I think
it's
is probably
when you're a child, how you take the experience. Like from the outset, you weren't neglected, but when you're 5, you have a different experience, and you process that as neglect. So it's not the parent's fault necessarily.
Right.
Sometimes it is,
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. Because I can't say, like, again, my parents, I felt so much love for my parents. That was not the thing. That said, I was definitely alone a lot in life. And so I think I kind of went into a lot of my relationships with a barrier up, just assuming that I wasn't going to get the support that I felt like I wanted. So I just kind of, I kept a certain space and distance between most people in my life, probably everybody in my life up until a certain point. Anyway, what I realized was this theme of feeling left, feeling alone, feeling abandoned. And that was something that I wanted to move past and move through in order to add a layer of richness to every relationship that I had. And I guess if you want to use the term core wound, that was a core wound for me. And so I think because what's great about becoming aware of these things, of these themes in your life, is that you have something to work with. If you keep running into the same thing over and over and over, it's probably, I'm not going to say probably, it's definitely worth looking at. Absolutely. And really trying to find, where did it start? And my belief is whether you want to decide that it started at some experience that you had in this life, or that you came into this life and then had an experience that kind of awakened you to this issue. And then, just so that you could had something, the thing that you came into this life, or things that you came into this life to sort of address and help yourself out with. For me, like I said, this idea of feeling left started pre-mom's death. So my mom died at 16, when I was 16, but that was not when this thing started for me. It started before that. And so I think the mom thing was just to kind of help push me more into that awareness and that awakening. And we haven't used the word trauma either. I think, which is kind of very tightly related to this idea of core wound. Mm-hmm. I think as human beings, we all experience some form of trauma, core wound. Mm-hmm. Like that. I almost feel like that's kind of the point of being human.
Yeah. It's a standard issue. Here,
it is a standard issue.
This is going to be your deal. Yeah.
Totally. Exactly. You sign up for it and you're like, all right, I'll work on this thing.
Like, I'll pick death. No, abuse. I want abuse. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the non-physicals are doing up there, but wow. Okay. They're like, it's like a Game of Thrones. Which character do you want to be on Game of Thrones? The one that dies in the first season, or do you want to be the one that's tortured and then
suffered and tortured?
Like, so, yeah, I know. Or do you want to be it nobody goes unscathed is the thing we learned about Game of Thrones.
Oh, and I'll just say too, if you're looking at your life and you're like, there was no experience where I had severe trauma. I think the part of the problem is that because that's kind of how I looked at myself too. I'm like, yeah, like I had this one thing that happened, but it's, I have a totally awesome perspective about it. I'm good, but like, you don't need some crazy, like traumatic experience. You could have grown up in a house where your parents maybe stayed married. Maybe they didn't super like each other a lot, but there was no like one specific instance that maybe, created this trauma for you. Maybe it was just like a series of smaller experiences, and I don't even want to quantify it because that's not fair. It's like, it's not about that. It's about, like you said it beautifully before, it's about the thing that made you feel a certain way as a child and you held on to that.
Doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's a feeling that stuck with you and that continues, and you continue to have experiences throughout your life that continue to perpetuate that feeling. And maybe you're not sure, maybe you're not aware. And I think that's a lot of times that's when we disconnect from our bodies. And we are not even, like, a lot of people aren't even connected to those feelings. They have experiences and they're so used to feeling or being a certain way, and they don't even know that it's not good for them, or that it's creating all sorts of health issues, relationship issues, self-worth issues, whatever it is. Like, there's stuff that you may not even be aware of, but again, the whole point of us in part is to help create awareness. So anyway, I babbled a lot.
No, but I like it. I'm just like, there's like so much goodness. We don't babble. We express.
We express. Thank you.
I love all of your words. And when you were, I think, just to put a little cap on the end of that, which is the core wound or the trauma or the stuckness or whatever you want to call it, for everybody, blocks flow, right? So it's, whether it's, you see it as this dissonant frequency because Lisa's crazy and talks about all this stuff, or if you see it as emotional trauma, or however you look at it, it's blocking flow. And here on Flow Gutter, we're all about the flow of consciousness, energy, love, all this goodness, right? Because that's what brings you closer to your divine nature, right? So that's why we care right now. Why it's so important. You said all those things, and they're really important. And I really like that you were saying how, like, it doesn't matter what specifically happened. Some things sound horrifying to one person. Another person is so resilient that they're like, that's not actually what bothered me. It was this, or something. So it maybe isn't worth diving into too many specifics, although we might when we get to the how part. But I also was thinking that one of the reasons we're here is to simply have experience, because each of the experiences that everybody has is part of this tapestry of vibration that is, like, so if you're sort of a non-physical, we're all going to die and we're going to be like, wow, we're dead. There's going to be an awareness of the specificity of the density of this space-time plane, right? Like, we're all, and the way one person was, wronged, or they weren't wrong, but they took something they interpreted something as wrong, and they feel emotionally hurt by it, because both of those things can be true. That it's an experience that the collective gets to know, right? Just, it's not good or bad. It's like, wow, that's what really bad abuse is, okay, let's not keep doing that, right? But like, it's part of you don't paint a painting and say, I'm not using any dark colors. I mean, you can, but like, life, the space-time thing is very much in contrast, and nobody wants to be the person that has all the dark stuff. Like, that feels really unfair, and you feel empathy for people that are going through that kind of stuff. I say they're brave AF, right? like, wow, you really signed up for some. I have a friend, she's totally amazing, signed up for the craziest stuff. One of these days we're going to have a podcast because she's semi-famous and will be famous eventually. And so, but we'll keep that a secret. So, okay, my point in all this is we're having an experience of this and we don't like it and we want it to stop. Like, okay, I had the experience, or the experience sucked. And I think what's happening is that we had the experience, and the brain, body, spirit, soul, whatever, sometimes can only handle so much. Like, I was thrown off a horse when I was 5. I literally have zero trauma from that. Like a racehorse just flung me off. And I just got up, dusted myself off, and was like, blah, blah. But, the kid who made fun of you or something, oh my God, that, that kind of thing. Right. So,
yes.
And then it could be the other way with somebody else. Right. So, what was my point? I've now lost my point.
No,
Jeez, where did it go?
You're right. No, you're just bringing us back to this idea of like, I think this also speaks to non-judgment, where it's easy to judge, people, your experiences, people's experiences. And then it's also easy to, like, it's interesting, kind of going back to like how my mom died. When I tell them how she died, people are like, oh, they usually assume that, oh, it's from some illness or disease or something. And then when I see the different reactions people have, it's almost like they've labeled certain experiences as like, there's like tiered, sort of, yeah, like, oh, she died in a plane crash. Oh my God, that's horrifying. Versus, oh, she died of cancer. Oh yeah. Kind of like, yeah, that's, which I could have, like, someone's parent or person who maybe died of cancer could have experienced way more trauma. I'm not saying that I wasn't traumatized by that event, but also like you should never judge someone's experience or your own, because that's not what it's about. It's about kind of the feeling that you had from any experience and kind of going there and cleaning that out. And again, I'm going to really direct people to go watch our Feelings and Emotions podcast, because we really do go deep in that one. It's very related to what we're talking about now. Because we offer ways of cleaning out those things. But in any case, yeah, you're right. It's no judgment on the experience itself. It's really about getting to the feeling that experience brought, whatever it was.
Exactly. And I think not completing the experience. So the brain, that's where my point was. We found it, people. That no matter what happens to you, like if the body didn't complete, what do we mean by complete the experience? Some things are so traumatic, you can only take a sip of it and you're like, I can't even with this, like they're just too much. And some things are not that traumatic, but you just didn't deal with it, right? Like, and so huge, again, going back to the feelings and emotions, from my perspective and what I've realized that works. So this is where I want to get into what I call the should I or shouldn't I with emotions. So what I've noticed with emotions, and again, people, we will get you to healing those core wounds. Hang in with us. Is the feelings and emotions. So sometimes you see people, they're constantly having so many feelings, it almost seems like they're not really healing anything. They're just having a lot of feeling expression. And some people feel nothing, right? And we've got to be able to figure out how to really feel. Because I think a lot of times, or you feel something and your mind actually is what's going crazy, but you're not actually feeling. So, okay, I feel a little bit afraid. Doesn't matter what it's afraid of. The brain explodes with past, present, future, fear, blah, all this stuff. So the mind's actually activated from the feeling. And what we're going to try and help you with is feeling the feeling. versus mentalizing. Now, that's not to say that limiting beliefs, conditioning, and all that other good stuff doesn't need to be addressed, because it absolutely does. And it'll perpetuate, it'll perpetuate the emotional piece. Like, they'll kind of work together where all these limiting beliefs will cause more fear, and then the more fear will cause more thoughts. So they definitely both need to be handled. But I think because we're flow getter and all things are about energy flowing, all this stuff, I think feeling the emotion and letting yourself feel like, okay, when I think of my core wound, let's say it's relationship related, as you get closer to feeling it, there's this feeling of, let's say, not in your case, but I'm just going to pull one from anywhere. Someone's feeling worthless. They're just feeling nobody's ever going to love me. Like, what's the point of me? All this stuff. It's a very hollow, lost feeling. That's, of course, you want to ignore that, So you'll kind of deflect and just, eat it, talk, you'll do anything to not feel that. And what we're wanting to help kind of train people on is, when you start to feel uncomfortable, if you can stop for a second and say, this isn't me. This is an energy, a frequency, a song by a band I hate stuck in my body, and it wants to move out of my field. And it's like having, like, sometimes you have to barf or something, like you're like, oh, I just don't want to, but I gotta. That's what the body's wanting to do. It's wanting to, especially as you kind of go up in frequencies yourself, like you're getting happier, you're doing more affirmations or whatever it is you're doing to increase your positive thinking. And then all of a sudden this stuff comes up. The idea is that you feel it as an energy and let your mind just say, okay, mind, I know you want to label this. I know you want to have thoughts about this. I know you want to avoid, like, just the mind just goes bonkers when you start to feel something. If you can just hang on and be in your body and be in the moment and feel the terror, the loss, the hollowness, the darkness, the whatever, and watch it move. It will move. It'll move through your body. It'll move through your emotional centers. It will do something, I guarantee. And it's amazing if you can stick through that. And sometimes you only have to go through something once, sometimes several times, but it radically shifts the
Absolutely.
experience of how you handle the feelings that, and some people say trapped. I just think that, I don't say the word. I think they're just waiting, like paperwork. Again, smoking. The higher self is smoking, going, oh my God, so much paperwork.
Waiting for you to go.
But so, it's like that kind of thing where we're watching that experience in ourselves. So our consciousness is up here going, whoa, this sucks. But you can start to feel yourself as a higher consciousness being as you're watching this experience happen through your space-time self or whatever it is. And it might be icky. It might be not even scary. You'd be like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And the next time it comes up again, you're like, oh, that's right. I don't have to run away from this in the ways I run away from this or try and shove it. And it's like, there's nothing to fear. You have got this. It wouldn't come to you. It wouldn't be here if you were not able to deal, like, in this moment. Okay. I'm dismounting on my little soapbox. Erica, help me out.
To help people understand how this works, in the physical world, there are things that we do so often, or that we've done so often that we almost become numb to it. So we eat foods that we eat. We know what to expect. It's not a shock. Things that we see, smell, whatever. In the physical world, there are things that we've done enough times. Now we're used to it. Now we know what to expect. There's no fear around it. Same thing with emotions. The only reason they're scary is because we haven't spent a lot of time there, and we don't want to. We don't need to. But you need to spend enough time to get it out. You're right. It's like barfing or taking a dump. It's like, get the toxic stuff out of your body, let it go, and then it's gone. But experience it. You have to experience it. Otherwise it's going to stay there.
It is.
And so, yeah. So, Yeah,
and
thank you
sorry, I'm going to interject for a
Go
second.
ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I totally talked over you. I was thinking too, there are some people that have been through, if you need a professional with you beyond the awesome coaching that Erica and I would help you with, please get a professional that works for you. Like if you need support, psychologist, psychiatrist, coach, somebody, because there are people that are just going to need that. And sometimes feeling yourself, if you haven't felt yourself for a long time, you don't want to put yourself back in a traumatic space. But if you're feeling like, oh no, I can do this, I got this, go for it. If you need a little support, check out our coaching page. We're here for you. And I talked over you. So where were you going? Sorry.
No, you're good.
I just want to make sure people get the support they need, because, it can be a lot for some people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they're really, when we're talking about core wounds and trauma, like we're talking about the deepest stuff that you in your life have experienced. So they're definitely, a lot of times we do require help. Okay. I kind of want to get to like the how, okay.
Okay, good. Let's do it.
Okay. So we've talked about the what and the why. Okay. Core wounds, why, to grow and evolve and change and be better. Okay. How do we kind of move through this? And we started, I like that you've already kind of launched us into that feel it, feel all there is to feel. And you'll kind of get yourself to a further and further place. I'm going to kind of use myself as an example, and I've used this before, so apologies if this is a repeat. But essentially, what the way that I have helped myself get through stuff is I have re-experienced it in my mind. I've kind of gone through, because I think a lot of times we have these experiences that are really very clear in our minds, and they scare us. And the minute we start to envision them, we distract ourselves, and we don't want to think about that thing. Or we just, we go and watch a happy movie, or we talk to a friend, or we deflect, we run, which is natural and normal. I think truly, I'm a big believer in meeting your stuff head on, really facing it, because when you do, you recognize and realize it's not that scary. And not only that gives you an opportunity to redefine it and then see it in a whole different way. So for me, I really feel like fully engaging in that experience, and even if you have to meditate on it, if you have to journal about it, if it was recorded somehow and you can rewatch it, I don't even know. I'm not sure, but however that is, or, whatever that is for you, face it head on and do so in a very conscious, aware way. And if you need someone to hold your hand as you're doing it, find that person or find that thing, whatever it is. But the point is go back and relive it as much as you can. And here's why. So I did this exercise 20 years after my mom died. And because for 20 years I'd walked around avoiding feelings and emotions, just sort of in this sad state, I didn't really, I kind of had moments of like, happy and satisfied, I guess, but it was mostly just sad. And it was because I was carrying around this thing that I never really addressed. Anytime I thought of I kind of replayed the whole thing in my head, it was either from a very analytical standpoint, or like I was telling someone else's story and I de-identified with it to the extent to which I had no feelings about it. Or if I even started to feel about it, it was just too much for me to handle. So then I'd shut it down and I'd go back to being sad. What I decided to do though was just kind of carved out dedicated time to just go there and feel all of the pain and sadness and trauma and horribleness. And here's the amazing thing that happened is when I did that, the first time it was shocking and scary. And I cried like buckets for hours and hours and days. But as I continued to do it, kind of dip back into that experience, each time it softened every time. And so, I spent months probably kind of going back and forth, But every time I not only did it soften, but then I came out of it kind of at the end, like you're saying, complete the experience, where I was able to see it from a completely different perspective. Not only was it no longer sad or scary or traumatic, it's beautiful and it's incredible. And it's like, I see it from a very magical kind of perspective. And I can look at it and be like, oh my God, like I mean, I have actual miracle stories from it. Like, it's totally a different experience for me. I reframed it in my entire being and soul. And it's just so cool. And so you do it. So I now see it as the biggest gift of my life. I really do. I don't think
and I
that.
can say that's not BS that you're saying this because it was such a gift. Like I saw this experience happen for you, and having known you, I know that you authentically feel that way, and you can't fake that. Like
You
especially
can't
not
fake
with,
that.
yeah, that's yeah. So
Yeah,
continue.
Thank you. 100%. So I would say, okay, I'm just looking at my notes now because, so that for me, I'm like, how? Okay. So step 1 is engage fully. Okay. That's what I would recommend. Okay. Step 2, I'm sorry. That was step 2. Step 1 was become aware. My bad. Step 2 is engage. The awareness part. And okay, I should probably, apologies. I should probably kind of backtrack a little. The awareness part, we kind of addressed this already, but just really to kind of bring it full circle is to sometimes we don't know. We spend decades of our life not even realizing what is my thing or what are the things. So, really having that awareness of what is it? What do I even need to address? And okay, so that's step 1. Step 3 is the redefinition of it. And so I, like I said, and it'll mean different things for different people. So you have an experience, you identified it, you relived the whole thing as many times as you need to kind of pop you out on the other side. Now you get to redefine what it means for you and why it happened and what the amazingness is that came out of it for you, because it's always for you. It's not only for you, but it's for literally every single person that comes into your space, and for all of your relationships. For me, like every single relationship that I had as I was healing deepened. And I started meeting new people. I met you right at that time that I was ready to go through this experience, and like, look at where we are now. I mean, the depths of my soul, and I'd never been there with anyone, before. So it's just so cool. So it's pretty incredible that you can totally change the story.
Yeah. Well, I also want to say how brave you are to have been willing to be aware, because you could have just kept going. I mean, it was, life was fine, right? It wasn't really, I mean, it was ruining a lot of things, but you didn't really experience any disaster or anything like that. You made the conscious choice to take these 3 steps. And I would say from my perspective, and it sounds like from your perspective, this was an excellent choice. And look at all the things you did along the way. Like none of those things were easy. Like, okay, I'm going to just bawl for buckets and then keep, a lot of people don't have a specific, I think this really works well with a very specific situation as well. I have some ideas for some other things, but I just want to call out the bravery. And it's okay also too, it's okay if people don't ever do this. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't want to deal with this ever. It's okay.
Yeah.
Fine. There's no problem. But when you do it, it's bravo, because I know that it's a long journey. There's a lot of barfing and pooping along the way spiritual self. So bravo to you on that level. Okay, more thoughts. I have all these
No,
things.
you go.
But I want
it's your turn.
Okay. Oh, it's my turn. Okay, so 2 things I want to talk about. One, when it's not a specific trauma, what did they do? So that's going to be a question for you. My other thought before we get into that is we're a really big fan, if nobody knows Abraham Hicks, but most of your life, you don't want to be focusing on negative. You don't want to be digging around trying to fix yourself, because that's actually not self-loving to do that. You want to move forward and not keep beating the horse, right? However, the whole reason we're having this podcast is for specific things that just seem like, wow, I need to kind of deal with this. So I want to make it really clear that at least my party line is that when it's something you really need to address, or when you're being just in the habit of negativity and focusing on what you don't want, and that kind of stuff. Because not everything, some people say, oh, you have one core wound, or you have 10, or but I think all of that is irrelevant. I think the main thing is you need to decide in yourself if you're being sloppy with your thinking, and you need to just start being different, essentially. Like, and I'm going to diverge a little bit here, but I think I'll make the point is, I'm focusing on this thing that I don't like. Oh, I feel bad about this. I'm just going to feel bad, but I feel kind of, it's like, why are you even thinking about that? Just don't be worried about it. And you sort of just force yourself to stop thinking in a certain way. That would be an example of not really a core wound. That's just you kind of spinning, over. Now that's going to take some, what I call Lisa magic, where we really work with your brain to get you to stop thinking this stuff. Of course, it's Erica magic also. So that's something I want to really make a point to say, which is that we're really talking about stuff that is just limiting you emotionally and in life, and you're just really stuck around it. So I want to go back to the question, and then I want to say more stuff about how we relanguage this and reframe it. But can you talk more about what you would want someone to do if I would be a good example? I don't have like a specific instance or thing up until, let's say, later in life I had some traumas, but I'm sure I had wounds or stuff I'm protecting and not dealing with emotionally, for sure. But there's no specific thing I can replay. There's just, it's almost like a nebulous mist, but I could maybe bucket it with a certain, like, oh, it comes up during this, or that kind of stuff. So what do you say to people that don't have something they can relive or replay?
It's a great question. And the word that came to mind is conditioning. And so I think all of us, if we can go back, and it's funny because I also, I've sort of kind of done this with like the childhood trauma stuff, or, going back to childhood and having to relive childhood thingies. But I do think that there's something there. I really do. I think, and in fact, I'm going to say, it probably benefits all of us to kind of go back. Because when I think about, and at least in my experience, I can think about every single person I know in my life. And we all grew up in a certain way, in a certain, with certain parents, certain set of parents, and a certain energy, your house filled with a certain kind of energy. Mm-hmm. And it may not be one massive experience or one, crazy, shocking experience, but it could be that I grew up in a household filled with parents who were anxious all the time. And so now I'm anxious all the time, and I want to stop being anxious all the time, so I was conditioned that way. Or I grew up in a house where, my one of my parents or both of my parents were not present very much. Mm-hmm. Or I had a sibling who was just mean to me, and they were just a bully, or whatever it is,
They were a butthead.
They were a butthead. And even though it's like, oh, well, yeah, we all have siblings who are buttheads, but no, that can actually be a thing that, yeah, if you just had a crappy sibling experience for years, that is absolutely worth addressing, Okay. I think it's, when you go back and you kind of, I think the key and the goal is to kind of map back, figure out the feelings and emotions that you don't want anymore. Figure out the patterns in your life. Figure out
there you go.
Right? Okay. Go there first and be like, where did this start? Have I felt like this my whole life? Well, then it is worth going back to your childhood and kind of digging there. where did this start? Did I grow up in a house where, I don't know, like, whatever. Did I kind of walk on eggshells in my house because I had a parent who was temperamental and, like I was trying to, as a child, I'm so sensitive. And so I was trying to like behave a certain ways to change their behavior because,
right.
you know what I mean?
Limiting yourself. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, that makes total sense. And because, okay, it makes sense that if you feel really limited in your life, it could be beneficial to go back and be like, okay, what's my deal?
Yeah.
Whether if you can't remember your childhood, at least tap into the like sort of the issue that you're centering around. My question to you is, because I'm a huge Abraham fan. What about law of attraction when someone's going back into like, okay, I'm going to go digging around. I'm going to go try and heal this thing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because we all know what we focus on tends to grow. So how do you interpret the positive about this? Because I mean, I've probably been conditioned. I'm like, oh my God, don't go there. So what's the benefit from the law of attraction standpoint?
Okay. So if you look at your life, right, and you keep running into this thing, well, you've not focused on it for decades, and yet it still keeps coming up.
You're like, how's that working?
So logically, totally, that's what I'm saying. How's that working for you? So the law of attraction, yes, it does work. But here's the thing: because of this idea that things get stuck, emotions and feelings. We create emotional habits based on things that we've experienced throughout our life. And so law of attraction is already in play. It was in play before you were born. So, like my argument is, yes, law of attraction is always there. So what you're essentially doing is taking what's happening inside and you're taking it out and you're looking at it and you're saying, WTF? Why? like, dude, I've been carrying you around all this time. Okay, let's have this conversation now. All right. And what you're doing is you're reframing your relationship with it. So, yes, law of attraction is always in play. It is never going to not be a thing ever, because that's what this whole existence is built on. That said, it's been in play up to this point. So you have been attracting all the shitty things that, so like, you're not going to, if you continue to go down this path of ignoring, you're going to keep attracting the same shit you've attracted the entire time. Right.
Bingo.
So yeah. So what you're basically doing is you're stopping and you're like, okay. And you're becoming aware. Like I said, step one, you're becoming aware. What is this thing? I must know more. All you're doing is information gathering. And here's the other thing, okay? Because we know law of attraction is based on the energy you emit. You don't have to look at it in a fearful way. What you're doing is you can be excited about digging into this thing, because we know law of attraction is always in play. And that is based on how you feel. So if you feel that there is going to be a super massive rainbow that you've never seen at the end of this journey before, like the pot of gold is there at the end of this journey, then you can be excited about digging into this. And what you're doing now is you're starting to emit joyful energy around getting to the bottom of this thing. Okay. And so that's where it's like, oh my God, like this super shitty stuff that I've been going through, I'm so geeked about. It's like you're put on your Sherlock Holmes hat and you're going to go and investigate and figure it all out. And then at the end of it, you get this prize, which is like, you've reframed your entire life. You've changed the entire story. Now you're manifesting in the most beautiful way possible. So start now with feeling good. And at the same time, because we live in an and world, at the same time, go deep, man. And you carve out that time to feel super shitty. Do it. Just get it out. You're just getting it out. That's all you're doing. You're taking the massive dump, like in the most biggest spiritual dump you've ever made, which is awesome, right? So that is where it's at.
Okay, I want to just gush over all this brilliance that you said, and I'm going to reiterate it for those of us who need to get it 5 times. So the energy that's already coming off of us because we haven't felt the feelings or released the feelings. I mean, hey, if you got a thing, any kind of mojo that your feelings just leave and you don't have to feel them, good, do it. Tell us about it. We're excited. Because there's like emotion code and all that kind of stuff. So many good things. But some cases you're going to have to feel. But so you're saying, and I agree, that when the energy of that dissonant vibration or frequency that's in us has already been pulling less desirable things to us, and by transforming, transmuting, reframing, restoring, feeling, all this stuff that you've been talking about, we actually increase that frequency and have a much better thing. And you also said your approach to the whole process doesn't come from, I am broken, I need to be fixed, or anything like that. It comes from, I'm totally amazing and I can't wait to transform this. This is going to be good. Okay. Roll up sleeves, feel feelings, go.
Thank you.
Okay.
You just so totally perfect.
Perfect. Okay. That is so amazing. Okay. Can we talk about the words that we use, core wounds? How can we relanguage the experience?
Everybody loves a good challenge, a fun challenge. It's like, oh, let me break apart this thing and put it back together, and then yay. I sort of like that approach. Like we're not trying to minimize the trauma that we all have maybe felt in some point in our life, and we're not trying to minimize the pain. I guess pain is really the word that I want to use. Is yeah, we've all experienced deep pain and suffering. We're human, and now that we've experienced it and we know what that feels like, we don't have to continue experiencing it. So now we can look at it differently. Okay, I came into this life. I wanted to challenge myself in this way. I'm meeting it head on. Let's do this. Like you said, roll up your sleeves. Let's do this. So it's almost like, I'm not sure what words, but I feel like words like challenge and, like kind of, I don't know, just more words that sort of mean like thing that makes you think and feel and then make it better,
Yeah. Well, I agree. And, what comes to mind is kind of back to the beginning when I was talking about us as an energy being, because I look at the state of, how nature is one, Earth itself minus humans seems to ecosystems have a flow to them. Energy throughout anything has a flow to it. Atoms go in a pattern. Things have patterns, and there's science. But the idea is that frequency. I mean, just when you look at waves, like they're kind of pretty, and when you overlay the wrong ones, they get really messy looking. So it's almost like Marie Kondo going, "Oh my God, can we just get this? Can we?" So it gets exciting for me when I kind of back to what I was saying about if I'm feeling an emotion and my head wants to explode with thoughts and to fix it, explain it, all those things. If I can remind myself to turn my brain off, I'm thinking it more in letting the frequency and the energy, just watch it move through my experience. To me, that's really exciting because it takes it out of the ego, I am broken, this happened to me, this, blah, blah, blah. And it did. We're not saying, but it takes that, I'm such a hot mess, oh my God, to I'm having an experience right now of energy that feels really not comfortable moving. Is it like having a baby? I've not had a baby. I know. No, it's a good thing. But so, what I'm saying? So I'm not sure what language I would do it, but I think from one way to do it is shifting it to an energetic paradigm of wow, I'm going to be, basically harmonizing this disharmonious frequency. And there's an emotional journey and a mental journey, reframing and all these things that kind of go along with it. So I guess the thing is if we look at core, I would take the word core out. I wouldn't use that word because it implies that it's deep inside and you can't ever get to it, or
totally.
it's sort of like when people talk about in health with like the root cause thing. Oh, it's you're not getting enough of this, but you can be looking for a root cause a lot. And sometimes what we think is root cause isn't a root cause, and it can be something really subtle. Nobody's really figured anything out, is what the headline is. So I would just say it's an experience that I keep having, and I'm going to address it. Versus it's core, because it makes you pull it in. Versus, it's a pattern. Pattern might be safer. Wound definitely can feel like that. Maybe we're looking at words that are, like, disharmony, right? Like, this isn't who I really am. Ooh, go ahead. Saw your face.
I'm like disharmonious theme. Because when you said pattern, the word theme sort of came to, it's like, we come in with these themes. Theme doesn't feel so stuck, like such a, it's like, okay, there's a theme here. And, it feels more like I can let the theme go. I can create new themes in my life, but like the disharmonious theme.
I love it so much. Oh, yes. Bravo.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
Good job, you.
We've decided that's what we're calling it. It's long. It's so many syllables, and I don't care.
and it sort of has that music, like disharmonious theme. It's like, oh, it's a song that doesn't resonate.
Yeah. It's like
just like what you said.
It's like a bad mashup, really. Like, what are you doing? Like, that does not go with this. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Think of the one song. I can think of the song that, like, as a kid, I was like, it was that Chris Isaac, Wicked Game song. Oh my God. I hated that song so much.
I was the worst song ever. Isaac. I think you were young and I was in college, but that's fine. Okay.
I know. I was probably still like very Catholic, like, oh, that's so naughty. Kids.
Oh, it's so long. Yeah, I have no offense to The Offspring, but no, can't listen to you. Can't. Sorry. The pitch that doesn't go with my... But for those of you who love The Offspring, no offense to, we all have...
Yeah, no offense to Chris Isaac at all.
Yeah.
Not personal.
So, not personal. We know that you're artists. Do your thing. Okay, so thank you everyone for staying with us. Any last words, Erica, before I talk to our audience a little more? Okay, you're shaking your head. No, this was so good. With your deep experience in sort of working with your disharmonious themes, Erica, and also mine, I know I didn't share any stories today, but let's say I approve of this message. And we want to hear what you think about all this, people. That we had a lot of different perspectives in this one, some new territory, and we want to know what you think. So please leave comments. Feel free to email us as well. Go to flowgetter.com for engaging. We have content, we have coaching, we have an email box. You can send us stuff. Sign up for email so we can stay in touch with you. We really won't spam you. We love just hearing from you and talking with you. And we want to really know, like, how you're going with this. Come back in a couple of weeks and let us know if you've tried any of this stuff and what works, what didn't. Because it's worked for us, but we want to hear what's working for you. So thank you very much for listening. Erica, a pleasure as always speaking with you. And thank you everyone for being here with us today. All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.